Hey guys, welcome to Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and today we're going to be talking about Oyo losing multiple battles against other hospitality companies, Paytm's new app that turns smartphones into point-of-sale machines, Tata's latest effort to build up its super app, a couple of acquisitions, all of the latest funding news, and more coming up right after this. All right, so first up in the news, it looks like the legal battle between Zostel and Oyo, which started in 2018, is coming to a head. So let me fill you guys in case you're not aware of what's been going on here. Back in 2015, SoftBank announced that Oyo had acquired Zostel. Zostel is a hospitality startup that offers accommodation in the form of hostels to travelers. And even though SoftBank had announced in 2015 that Oyo had acquired Zostel, by 2016, word in the ecosystem was that the acquisition hadn't happened. And so the question that everybody was asking at that time was why? Well, according to Zostel, this is what happened. As per the agreement, Zostel would transfer its business over to Oyo in exchange for a 7% stake in Oyo. And it seemed like everything was coming into place. According to Zostel, they did transfer their business over to Oyo. And that's perhaps why SoftBank announced that the acquisition had gone through. But then when it came time for Oyo to keep up their end of the bargain by giving Zostel a 7% stake in Oyo, they said that the agreement that they had with Zostel was actually a non-binding agreement, not a binding agreement. And so they weren't obligated to actually keep up their end of the bargain. Now, this legal battle actually ended up going as high as the Supreme Court, which appointed a tribunal to get down to the bottom of the situation and find out who was in the right and who was in the wrong. And while the tribunal did say that Zostel was entitled to costs in the cause, they also said that definitive agreements have yet to be executed. So what does this actually mean? What is this tribunal and therefore the Supreme Court actually saying? Well, partially what they're saying is that Zostel is entitled to something. We don't know what. There's no rupee value being assigned here. There's no stake value being assigned here. They're being very vague by saying costs in the cause. And perhaps one of the reasons why they're being vague is that they're also acknowledging that definitive agreements have yet to be executed, meaning that they're partially also siding with Oyo, who had said that these agreements were not binding. So long story short, we still don't know how this is going to turn out. All we know is what this tribunal has said this last week. But do keep in mind that Oyo is worth $9 billion. That's 65,500 crore rupees. And so if Zostel was actually able to get this 7%, it would pretty much be one of the biggest exits in all of Indian startup history. Their stake in Oyo would be worth $600 million or 4,365 crore rupees. Now, you probably thought that we were done talking about Oyo, but in fact, there's actually another situation, an agreement that Oyo made back in 2018, which is also going to potentially end up hurting their business. Back in 2018, Oyo had signed a commercial agreement with MakeMyTrip. And it looks like after that agreement was reached, properties from both Treebo and FabHotels were delisted from MakeMyTrip's platform. MakeMyTrip, of course, is one of India's largest online travel agencies, and they also own GoIbibo. And so what might have ended up happening here, this is just speculation on my part, but Oyo might have seen those two companies, Treebo and FabHotels, as sources of competition. They also would have seen that those two companies were getting a lot of business from MakeMyTrip and also as a result, GoIbibo. And so by coming to an agreement with MakeMyTrip, Oyo would have then been able to essentially eliminate those two companies as a source of major competition. Things ended up getting so bad that in 2019, the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Associations of India filed a complaint against MakeMyTrip with the Competition Commission of India. And while the investigation by the CCI into MakeMyTrip's potential abuse of its dominant position is still underway, the CCI has granted interim relief to both Treebo and FabHotels by asking MakeMyTrip to relist those companies on its platforms. They asked MakeMyTrip to comply with this request immediately because they said that delisting these companies from its platform had denied them access to distribution, thereby stifling competition. As I said, this probe is still underway, and so we really don't know whether this relief that's being given by the CCI to Treebo and FabHotels will end up being just temporary or whether it's going to be permanent. But one way or another, one thing that would certainly be a relief, at least to me, is if you guys could hit the like button. Seriously though, it does really help us out when you like our videos. It shows YouTube that you're enjoying our content and that you want to see more of it. Also, if this is your first time watching an episode of Backstage with Millionaires, we post new videos every single week about Indian startups, entrepreneurs, and the latest news, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, we have a newsletter, we have a podcast, we have a Hindi channel, and we even have a Discord server, and you can find links to all of those in the pinned comment down below. All right, next up in the news, Paytm has launched a smart POS app that's a point of sale app that can turn any NFC-enabled Android smartphone into a POS device. This means that merchants who have this app would be able to accept payments directly from their smartphone, even if the person who's making the purchase doesn't have a phone with them. Even if they just have their credit card or their debit card, they can tap that card onto the merchant's smartphone and the payment will go through. Now, at the moment, there is going to be a limit on the size of these transactions, and that limit is going to be 5,000 rupees, which is approximately $69. But according to industry estimates, approximately 90% of all transactions that happen here in India are less than that amount. Paytm currently has more than 20 million merchants, that's 2 crore merchants on their platform, but their current goal is to grow that number to 50 million merchants, that would be 5 crore merchants. And another way that they're planning to do this is by launching the Soundbox 2.0. These soundboxes are machines that provide voice-based confirmation when a payment to a merchant has gone through successfully. But up until this point, these soundboxes have been just that, soundboxes, and nothing more. Now though, with the Soundbox 2.0, these soundboxes come with a screen, so that merchants get both audio confirmation as well as visual confirmation. All right, moving on to some acquisition news now. It looks like Tata is in talks with Just Dial, which is an online search engine which lists local businesses. These talks will likely result in Tata either acquiring a majority stake in Just Dial or establishing a strategic alliance with them. And while this isn't obviously a guarantee, there's a big chance that one of the reasons why Tata is pursuing such an acquisition or an alliance is to strengthen its super app, which they're currently working on now. Next up in the acquisition news, logistics technology startup FarEye has acqui-hired another logistics company called PY Technologies. They're doing this in an effort to scale customer implementation and also to incubate new ideas. As part of this acqui-hire, the founder of PY Technologies, Jignesh Vasani, will be joining FarEye as the vice president of professional services. All right, next up in the acquisition news, Verse Innovation, which is the parent company of Dailyhunt and Josh, has acquired photo and video sharing platform Vebbler in an effort to boost the camera and social capabilities of its short video sharing platform Josh, and also to build a comprehensive product platform for Indian language users. All right, moving on to some funding news now. Insurtech startup Turtlemint has raised $46 million, that's 335 crore rupees, in its Series D round led by Jungle Ventures. The startup offers an online platform where customers can compare and buy insurance from more than 40 different insurance companies. They currently have more than 1.5 million users, that's 15 crore users, and have seen a 600% growth in health insurance covers in the last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The startup is going to be using these fresh funds to continue developing their product, invest more into marketing, to expand their distributor network to grow their reach in existing geographies, and also to add new locations to their network network as well. All right, next up in the funding news, esports company NODWIN Gaming has raised 164 crore rupees, that's $22.5 million from Krafton, which is the developer of PUBG Mobile. NODWIN, which is one of the leading esports companies in India, was acquired by Nazara Technologies, which is aiming for an IPO soon in 2018. And they've partnered with a number of different prominent gaming firms to host esports competitions and tournaments. NODWIN Gaming is going to be using these fresh funds to accelerate their international growth. All right, next up in the funding news, logistics startup Ecom Express has raised $20 million, that's 146 crore rupees, from CDC Group. Ecom Express is an e-commerce focused end-to-end logistics provider. Their network covers more than 90% of the households in India, and virtually every major e-commerce player in India is their client. The company also recently expanded outside of India with an $11 million investment into Bangladesh-based end-to-end logistics company Paperfly. Ecom Express will be using these fresh funds to expand their workforce by adding 8,000 new jobs. They'll be taking on new business initiatives, and they're going to be exploring growth opportunities through acquisitions and mergers. All right, next up in the funding news, edtech startup Quizizz has raised $12.5 million, that's 91 crore rupees, in a funding round led by 8 Roads Ventures. Quizizz enables teachers to make learning more fun by creating gamified quizzes. The startup has more than 60 million monthly active users, that's more than 6 crore monthly active users, who are spread out across 100 countries. And according to Quizizz, more than 65% of American schools use their service. They're going to be using these fresh funds to accelerate their international expansion and also to grow the size of their team. All right, next up in the funding news, insurtech startup Riscovry has raised $5 million, that's 36.4 crore rupees, led by Omit Your Network India. Riscovry provides a one-stop shop for insurance companies by offering an infrastructure platform that helps in creating insurance products, product integration, compliance licensing, and policy generation using APIs. So far, the company has helped 50 partners to sell 200,000 insurance policies. That's 2 lakh insurance policies. All right, that is all the startup news that I have for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. Big thanks to all of our Backstage with Millionaires members, our unicorns, and our decacorns. As I always say, your financial support really does mean a lot to us. But even if you can't afford to financially support us by becoming a member, it really means a lot that you made it this far in the video. So thank you for watching this episode of Backstage with Millionaires.